Okay, this is the third time I have tried to start recording this thing. It really reminds me of why I'm better with scripted videos instead of something where I just need to go unscripted off the cuff. Would be better if I had someone to bounce off, but I do not have that luxury most of the time. So, to make this easy, I'm gonna go off the notes I took while I watched the movie, and we're gonna go in a sporadic order as how I wrote them, and based on that, let's see how this goes. So, directed by Craig Gillespie and written by Anna Nogueira from Tom King's Supergirl Woman Tomorrow comic. Okay, starting from the opening, this time, unlike in the comic, it starts with Kara, with her perspective and how she is going to those Red Suns planets, getting drunk and partying and trying to get away from her troubles and other things. Then when it comes to Ruth's family and how they eventually are killed, that's done so that we actually see it happening in real time instead of after the fact as it's told. And also the circumstances, unlike how they were revealed in the 7th issue by Krem telling it to Ruthie. It's basically like so that in this time, Krem is not just some guy who was a king's agent, who went to the peasants and told jokes about the king and see how the locals would respond to the jokes. And Ruthie father, instead of responding like third option way, it's basically he's a blacksmith who makes swords, and Krem, who is this time the leader of the brigands, comes with a crew to demand swords. And it's basically something they might kill them or they might not kill them. It's basically a question of when or how. And the reason why they end up killing them is basically Ruth's brother's fault. Who, unlike in the comic, has only one older brother or younger brother, I'm not exactly sure which one it is, who decides to, is not aware of the situation, sees Ruthie observing the situation, decides to jump in and scare his sister, and not realizing that there are space pilots in the house, gets axed to the back. It's essentially a situation that was always gonna happen, but it was just a question of how and when. Then the reason why they end up stealing Kara's ship like in the comic is because Ruth's father had trapped mines outside of their house and before dying activated them to destroy their ships. And then it pretty much goes the same way how the Ruthie goes to the nearest watering hole, which in this case is a bar. Exactly, it's a more sci-fi setting, so it's they go with the fantastical elements that the comic had in showing it kind of like a magical environment and change it into a sci-fi setting. They go to it's a bar. She pitches her revenge mission, wants people to help her track down Krem. Which this is a big change, by the way, because they went and changed Krem, or the leader of the brigand. In the comic, you could say that without being a king's agent, he would have been just some guy. You can hire or ask people to help you find some guy who happened to kill your family, but asking them to help you track down and kill the leader of the space pirates, that's a whole different issue. And then circumstances eventually lead to the whole thing, Kara being there when she makes her pitch, and then she follows Kara to her ship when obviously the brigands need a ship to leave the planet. They end up taking Kara's ship and Krypto tries to stop them. It gets shot with an arrow, has poison, and actually gets poisoned this time. Also, the sword that Ruthie carries in the movie, which was not used to kill her father this time, it's a sword that her father created, had built as a smith, and she wants to use it to get revenge. Jumping on to the next part, which is the intergalactic bus terminal. They cut out the space dragon and Kara using red kryptonite to turn into a Firefly type Pokemon to fight the space dragon. Now it's just another group of space pirates, and she gets her powers back because they happen to be close to a yellow sun. Hey, Pragmatic Adaptation, I understand that it's, well, take a cool aspect from the comic and replace it with something mundane or something. But otherwise, it was probably okay because that was the first showcasing of Kara having powers from Ruth's point of view, so I can understand that change. Then they interrogate those space pirates, asking them where can they find the brigands, and they basically are sent to the... Let's go with the events of the 3rd and 4th issues, which happen on one place. Basically a planet named after the artist of the comic, Bilquis Evenly. So basically, that location serves as the Coron, and the Maple Town, the Maple Town on planet Corom, which is turned into the wretched hive where all the bad people are mostly hanging out, and the Blues versus Purples class warfare that they had in the comic, it's changed into basically human trafficking operation where the brigands are apparently one sex race, all men, and they need to, well, somehow, it's just a weird design flaw, they need to find females to breed with so they can keep their race alive. Basically like the goblins in Goblin Slayer. And down there in the Pilquist, that's where we see Lobo, who is basically a proof of concept cameo, a hero of his own story, and eventually when the story gets to that point, the placeholder for Comet the Super Horse. The events of the planet Pilquist, where it's basically, that's eventually, they go there and ask about the brigands, and then eventually they are told, we know brigands, everyone knows brigands, and they essentially set a trap, they even summon the brigands there, and they eventually, it's a huge fight sequence, PG-13 fight sequence, no blood flies around. And Lobo is mostly there because, as a hero of his own story, or a different story that's happening at the same time, Lobo is there to hunt down another brigand who has a bounty that he wants to get paid for. Otherwise, he just doesn't care about what else is happening around him. And then there's the whole aspect that because they have, the brigands have young breeding-aged girls as hostages. Parents of certain girls, they tried to trap Kara and Ruthie so that they could hold them hostage and exchange them for their daughter. And there's the whole aspect where, because Krypto is actually poisoned this time, and Kara does not have her main goal be that she tries to teach Ruthie that killing is wrong. She's more focused on getting the antidote than trying to teach Ruthie that it's wrong to kill. So when she tries to stop Ruthie from killing Krem gets away and kills the parents of the girl who tried to trade them for their daughter, and Krem kills the entire family. Basic movie trope, second act downer point, where they're on bad terms, and then eventually they need to get back together to get the story to move along. It's basically the second act low point. Then, while that happens, Kara goes along alone and asks to be taken where the brigands are. And that happens to be the Barenthon, the events of the 5th issue, which doesn't have any dinosaurs, but it has a green sun. It's not saying that it's a green kryptonite sun, but it's just a green sun, which is, now that I actually think about it, if it's a green sun, does that automatically make it kryptonite? Or is anything green in this movie universe kryptonite? Like, for example, looking at that poster, is Ruthie's jacket made of kryptonite? By that logic, that if a sun is green, it's automatically kryptonite. But, or maybe it's the whole fact that yellow gives powers, red nullifies them, and green then just is automatically deadly radiation. But anyway, Barenthon as the events of the 5th issue, that's where Kara was out of commission, and that is basically where Ruthie had to pull her weight, fight the monsters that are not present in the movie, get essentially hardened battle experience for her eventual confrontation with Krem. That doesn't happen in that way. Instead, when in the comic, Kara wanted to get water from the monster-infested lake. This time, because there are no monsters, Ruthie goes there to get water, and at that lake there are brigands swimming around, and she gets caught and thrown into one of their holding cells, which just happens to have a Lobo in there. There's this one kind of confrontation where Krem comes to the holding cells to ask Ruthie, where is Supergirl, or where is the Kryptonian? We know she can't survive here, and because Ruthie hates him, she spits on his face, they leave, and then she realizes, oh no, and then she tries to put on the helpless little girl act to ask, come back, tell Krem, I'll tell everything, and got some guard who comes to pick her up, put her handcuffs in the first place. She goes and I'm not sure if it's actually confirmed there, but she either held that brigand out of breath that he either passed away and then fell onto the spikes in the cell, or just out-handed killed him by... Ruthie killed one of the brigands before she got to Krem. That either happened or didn't happen. I'm not sure which way it happened, but it's either or. But anyway, doing that, she escapes from the cell, helps Lobo out, then they go their separate ways. Lobo goes after his bounty, Ruthie goes get her sword, and now we are at the end of the climax of the issue 7 and 8, at the space pirate ship where Kara fought while they were down on the planet beach where that was happening. Now it gets into so that, actually, before getting into the final fight climax things, let's talk about something else, like the flashback revelations that were in issue 6, where Krypton didn't die in a day because the god that was Tom King was not that kind. They changed some things that, for example, that Kara wasn't even born when Krypton blew up. they made it so that they still did the Argo City thing, but they never mentioned where they got the technology for that. It's something like it happened in the comics, so they could do it, but they could have maybe mentioned that they took some technology from Brainiac from when Brainiac came to take Kandor. And instead they could do so that when Zor-El and Allura escape to under the dome that eventually becomes Argo City floating in space, we see the ship that takes Baby Kal-El and talk, there goes the future world conqueror. Thanks a lot, James Gunn. But enough about that. They make sure that while Argo City is floating in space, Kara is born there. And she grows up to be, I don't know how long. Argo City floats in space for 8 years. Then she is born, and then she grows up there until the point when the ground under Argo City starts to turn into kryptonite. And then many people die, Allura dies, and eventually Zor-El sends Kara to Earth. And then we got to the Superman cameos, because Superman has a few cameos around the movie. There's the few video calls, and then there's the necessary parts which come with Kara's Supergirl origin, with him finding her when she lands on Earth and gives her the Supergirl suit. Those are fine. Those are okay. That's pretty much, you need to have a Superman present for those parts of the story. And unlike like the Helen Slater movie and CW Supergirl, where they pretty much hand-wave that Superman is somewhere off screen and use a faceless actor, they have David Corenswet so they can use Superman as a part of that. That's just a necessity. But that essentially also goes up to the fact that this version of Supergirl is now not just physically younger, but also biologically younger than Superman, because most of the time they have done the so that they were sent out from Krypton or from Argo City around the same time, and Kara was stuck in some debris or black hole where she was stuck, didn't age at all, and came to Earth by the time Kal-El had become Superman. So now they just made it so that she was born much later after the Krypton had blown up, and basically that is how she is younger than Superman. But back to the Barenthon and the climax of the story. Now, because it happens in Barenthon where there's the green sun, it actually is a planet with two suns, green sun and a yellow sun, and this is actually something of a stupid thing or a what an idiot moment, because of course, half the time there's a green sun and any Kryptonian like Supergirl would be down, but eventually the sun is gonna change and it's gonna be yellow, and then you'll be going up against a fully powered Kryptonian. But still, they had to make kryptonite bullets. Actually, in the comic, I didn't mention it much in my review, but they had somehow managed to, I don't know how, somehow, Tom King logic, somehow, they had managed to get her bind, and were about to shoot her with some kryptonite gun. The brigands were gonna shoot Supergirl with some kryptonite gun, and that's the moment where, unlike in the comic now, because we have Lobo shows up in Comet's place, and because it's Lobo obviously doesn't die. And obviously there are some hiccups, because Supergirl needs to be somewhat nerfed, so that there's some challenge for her to fight against the brigands with their alien weapons, armors, and so on, other things. And at this point, I thought this is somewhat a good Take-Two rewrite, or a rewrite in general of the story itself. Pragmatic adaptation and all that. At this point, I thought, okay, this is good. This works. So far, the settings had worked, the alien designs of everyone at the place had worked, the costumes had worked, castings worked, except maybe for the Krem is the one that actually stands out as the unassorting, because the comic Krem and the movie Krem might as well be two completely different people. They are similar, but they are not the same. It eventually leads to that point where they manage to defeat the brigands and save the trafficked breeding age girls that they had in their ship and free them. And then it comes to a point where, instead of having properly Ruthie alone facing off against Krem, Kara comes in too early and tries to talk her out of killing Krem. And this is actually something that the comic did better. Ruth had Krem at her mercy, and she was trying to do the killing blow, but she missed about 5 times. And that shows that the message and the lesson that Kara was trying to teach her, it had gotten through. But then it goes to show that Kara comes out and uses words to tell her, don't do it, it's gonna be bad, it's gonna haunt you for the rest of your life. And okay, Ruthie breaks down, doesn't kill Krem, and walks away. And then Kara goes and kills him. And I cannot believe I'm saying this, but this is some... Okay, actually, I can't believe this because I have said this before. The comic did it better. A comic written by Tom King did this better. And Krem was an irredeemably bad, or someone who didn't show any remorse about his crimes. But the Phantom Zone, where he was put in the comic, that is usually fate worse than death. So killing him off, was that catharsis to get him to kill him and something like that? Or was it like with the Hawk Girl in the Superman movie? Supergirl is not Superman, meaning that Supergirl can kill, but Superman can't. If you're wearing this, or any variation of this, you do not kill. No kill rule is bad. No murder rule is where it should be. Because essentially, the way how Kara went to kill Krem was an execution. A catharsis-seeking execution. And Superman doesn't do that. Anyone who wears an S-shield doesn't do that. That's why they should have just put Krem into the Phantom Zone or punched him out, taken the antidote, taken to Crypto, and then basically kept Krem imprisoned. Have Krem be tied up, take him with them as a prisoner, take him to Earth, to Superman, because when Kara goes back to Earth, she meets Superman and they don't very much talk about, yeah, it was rough and something happened with Superman while Kara was in space. And then they go to the Phantom Zone, throw Krem in there, and they could have had the final scene from the comic be a post-credit scene. Yeah, take two rewrite. So close to getting it right. But no, I don't know if it's something that the movie demanded it, some studio executive demanded it, or James Gunn had demanded it, or maybe the writer decided that, yeah, let's do it just differently like this. But no. There's a difference between kill and murder. People like to say Superman killed General Zod at the end of Man of Steel, but that was a kill or let more people die situation. In the Superman movie, Hawkgirl had a harmless captured man at her mercy that she could have flown to Hague and be judged for the war crimes that he committed. President Gurko should have been taken to Hague and be charged for his war crimes. The same thing with Krem. Throw him into the Phantom Zone. Have him suffer 3 centuries for his crimes. And then be pulled out, show him empathy, and then if he's reduced into being a harmless old man, then he's not going to be any danger anymore in that way. So close, so close. But otherwise, cutting that out, I would like to say that the direction was done well. Alien designs, the locations, all the other things, those were done right. Jason Momoa as Lobo was more of a proof of concept and maybe something of a tease of a Lobo movie, but they haven't announced any Lobo movies. Next up we have Clayface coming up later this year, and Man of Tomorrow coming out next year, and well, there's Lantern still coming up as a show on HBO Max. I'm starting to ramble. Okay, let's try to summarize the final thoughts like this. As an adaptation to a Take-Two rewrite, there were good things that were taken out and were not replaced with something better. But as a movie on its own, someone told me you don't need to aim for perfection, but I say try to aim for perfection or close to perfection to get it at least close enough to it. Well, there were those flaws. As an adaptation of flaws, but I'd say that production-wise it was okay. Well, those are my thoughts based on... Hold on, let me check from the notes if I missed something to bring up. I said that, said questionable music choices. Yeah, the music used in this movie, let's put it this way. If you have seen my video covering the comic source material, comment down your opinions if you have seen the movie yourself. Which one used music better? The movie itself, or the video I made with the musical choices I had from all the different video game OSTs? I'm gonna let that for the audience to decide, and I give it any scores. Okay, 5 is average. Okay, 6 is above average. Let's say 7.5 out of 10. There are mishaps, but the production-wise it was good, the casting of all the actors was good, but the writing had hiccups, and whatever it sets up have hiccups, especially when Lobo saw Kara kill Krem. So if Lobo meets up with Superman, he can tell Superman that Supergirl is a murderer. Just like, actually that brings it down. 6.5. I'm gonna give it 6.5. That's the grade I'm gonna give it. Okay. Like the video, comment what thoughts you have about the movie, if you have seen it, how you would compare it to the comic. If you have seen it, did it make the comic look better? Feel free to share this video for more people to see, and subscribe to everything what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna start working on the part 3 of the BVS review right now. That's gonna be the next video project. Try to get some other things written while I edit that. And I need to make a poll for what I'm gonna stream next week. So, thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. May your heart be guiding key.